Read my wife's diary revealing that she secretly hooked up with her ex. I read my wife's diary revealing that she secretly hooked up with her ex while we were dating and still fantasized about him. Before I share my story, my main question is, have you had a spouse/partner who you learned was deep in imagining about other people or relationships, although maybe not necessarily currently cheating? How did you work through that and feel comfortable in your relationship? For my story, it's been almost a year since I started learning many hurtful things about my wife and our marriage. To get to the point quickly, my wife eventually admitted to me that she had been lying to me for 20 years. When we were first dating and seemed exclusive, she slept with her ex again and made out with a random guy at a party. She had lied about this for 20 years, so much so that we celebrated a relationship anniversary for nearly 20 years that commemorated a date before those incidents. She also lied to my face about it multiple times a year ago for weeks, letting me believe I was going crazy because I didn't trust her. During that tumultuous time a year ago, when she was repeatedly lying to me, I did something wrong myself and, for the first time, read parts of her journal. I was going to glance at it, but the first thing I saw was that a few months prior, she had written that she felt unsatisfied and infatuated with someone but didn't know how to work through it. I later learned that she was fascinated with a work colleague, and she told me that it was just a strong physical attraction but that nothing inappropriate ever happened or was said. Later, the guy left her workplace for another job. In one journal entry from a few years ago, she had met a man at the gym who seemed flirtatious with her, and she wrote she was intrigued by him and could be better friends with him as long as nothing awkward evolved. She also said she wouldn't mind me being jealous because it might make me appreciate her more. Later, she wrote that my mind takes my body to forbidden scenes that could occur but likely not that other people show interest in her, and that she feels guilty. But I was stressed with work and not giving her enough attention. She longs for excitement and breathes heavily like you mean it. She wrote, I feel guilty, but I'm sure other women sometimes fantasize about another man. I brought this up to my wife later as well, and again, she admitted that she fantasized about this guy who dumped her, and for a few months, they would still see each other and try to be friends, eventually having sex one more time. But finally, she says, when she fell in love with me, she cut off all contact with him. She claims he had tried calling her for a couple of years, and she always ignored him, eventually changing her number. Back to the dream, Dre. In many of the dreams, he would come back and be with her again, but often, he would treat her poorly or like she wasn't good enough. In other dreams, she writes about how insecure she feels about all the other women she imagines her ex has been with. She writes that she's idealized him over the years. She had also fantasized about her memories with him before, even after we had been married for many years, again writing that she needed closure. She writes that she feels like she needs to look him up online to shake up her idealization of him maybe and move on. She hadn't looked him up at all or deserves me, her husband, and her children, and we deserve the best of her, and she needs to leave this all behind in this city. When she returns home, she writes that she doesn't want to talk to him but wants to live her own life. She writes that she's proud of the person she is and has become, and she hopes he still looks her up and feels terrible for how he treated her, and that he lost his right to know her long ago. When she returns from the trip, she writes that she feels shaken and hasn't thought or dreamed of him, although I find that hard to believe. I know people can't control their dreams, and I told her that it's normal to dream about people from your life, but you choose how much to dwell on it or assign meaning to it. She's convinced that her subconscious has been hung up on her ex and haunted by him, although again, she tried to tell me that she's better now and knows how to redirect her thoughts. My wife is overall a good partner, a wonderful mother, and a good person. She's had substance abuse issues back then and later on in adulthood. He was not on the same level of intelligence as my wife and had no actual plans. Her high school relationship with him was very toxic, too, where they were together for a couple of years but broke up and fought frequently, and eventually, he cheated on her and may have more than she knows. After cheating on her, he said horrible things to her as well. She's told me all this and seems to know it's all true, but she still says stuff up for months. By the way, I just feel depressed about it from time to time by myself. I almost wanted to ask her what the good things about him were, but I feel like that's a bad idea in pain shopping. I know she was infatuated with him, and I think she was wildly attracted to him. While she's attracted to me, I think she was more attracted to him. I also guess her longing for the excitement and passion of a high school romance. The fighting and toxic parts probably made it feel exciting. I asked her if he had been single, and she said she assumed he was single because he was a loser. She said she never would have reached out to him. I just have felt depressed about all of this and keep having it resurface in my mind, plus the thoughts of the beginning of our relationship and her secretly still seeing her ex while dating me. It's just a combination of all the things that's so difficult. It's also been hard for me to learn how common it is since it's brought me a lot of insecurity. Thank you. Edit. She says she hasn't thought of her ex often but had occasional dreams about him that would still hurt her, where he would come back and act rude to her again, and she wouldn't feel good enough. I think she also imagined that he was out there regretting how he had treated her, and still thinking of her, and she would have dreams about that, too, where she could see him and ask him questions about it. That part bothered me a lot more because this guy was an absolute shit loser who not only cheated on her, and was horrible to her in behavior, but he also was known to others at the time as a shit. When we were 18 years old, I could forgive my wife for being in a toxic relationship, and seeing something in this horrible guy. Still, after 20 years of maturing into a very different person, it's hard for me to accept that she still dwells on or idealizes memories of this guy when I know she knows deep down I didn't trust her response. I did something very wrong, and read some of her personal. Share your thoughts in the comments and follow for more interesting stories.